Alright, so, like, what's up with the fucking perfumers, right? Like, alchemist builds haven't been a thing in any of these games ever, and now they are. I think the perfumers are pretty cool. I wish there was more perfumes, but we're going to be talking about the perfumers today. Starting with the Perfumers of Landel, who were once celebrated as doctors and apothecaries. Often seen as healers and herbalists, the perfumers enjoyed a heightened status amongst the nobles of Landel. However, when the Shattering rolled around, many were selected to be battlefield commanders for the troops, instead of healers, which was the role that most had expected them to fill. One of the main reasons they were given this position was the effects that their perfumes had on the soldiers they commanded, often having them fight a lot harder than units that weren't commanded by a perfumer, as well as the various poisons and explosives that were at the perfumer's arsenal, which made them a deadly force on the battlefield, to say the least. They were also allowed to use fire as the war went on, the use of which had been prohibited to any who served the Erd Tree in any form. Such breaking of previously sacred taboos is likely what led to the schism within the perfumers' ranks, in the form of the ones who would eventually be known as the Depraved Perfumers. These perfumers were said to imbibe their own spices and to practice their art solely for themselves alone, a stark contrast from the Order's original purpose, which was to serve the people. These perfumers held what the Golden Order would consider heretical beliefs about the Erd Tree. These ones in particular have a proclivity for hunting the noble living jars in search of the living jar shards, which they use to make their iron jar aromatic, a powerful perfume that turns the user to steel for a brief period of time. These individuals appear to offer their services as mercenaries and alchemists, as we see a large group of them residing in the Shaded Castle, presumably under the employ of Elmer of the Briar, who also holds what many considered were blasphemous beliefs. These perfumers can be found patrolling the battlements and sitting in groups, occupying some sort of sentry position at the castle, which is similar to the Wraith Callers and Revenant that we find here, giving the Shaded Castle what appears to be some sort of cobbled together defense, especially when complemented with the Poison Men. At least one of these depraved perfumers appears to have taken part in the massacre of the Albinaric village, alongside Wraith Callers yet again, where he could be found playing the flute on the way to yet another perfume enjoyer. This one belongs to yet another subsect of perfumers. Inspired by the ancient perfumer Rollo, who imbibed a physic that left him devoid of emotions so he could carry out the grim task of hunting the omens, he was forever after known as the first Omenkiller. Much like Havel the Rock in Dark Souls, his disciples all fashioned armor and clothing exactly identical to his, each one wearing a replica of Rollo's Omensmerk mask and his aprons. The mask itself supposedly resembled the evil spirits that haunted the omens in their nightmares, and the aprons were worn in remembrance of Rollo's legendary perfumer status. These perfumers were known as butchers of a twisted conscience due to their line of work, which often involved things like severing the horns off of baby omens and building a cleaver out of it, a nightmarish labor indeed. Similar to the perfumers at the Shaded Castle, many Omenkillers appear to sell their services as mercenaries, as evidenced by the two found at Volcano Manor. Now, aside from the Omenkiller who was at the Albinaric's village alongside a depraved perfumer, many of the other Omenkillers are in the company of the capital perfumers. For example, we find one in the capital itself. We also find one at the Perfumer's Ruins, and then we find another boss one at the Perfumer's Grotto. These Omenkillers appear to have remained loyal to the capital and guard places important to the royal perfumers. Due to the large number of Miranda flowers and even the really unique Miranda flowers you find at the Perfumer's Grotto, I'd say what few Omenkillers remained loyal to the capital were used to protect important places like this. Whereas the one at the Albinaric's village, for example, was likely acting as a mercenary for Gideon in some way, as he appears to really want that medallion to the Halleck tree, having put Latenna's wolf to sleep and harassing her for it. It just seems like the most likely. I don't know, it could be anything though. They could just have attacked the village just because they find the homunculus albinarics to be impure or something, but that seems to be disproven by the fact that there's a depraved perfumer in this Omenkillers company, and he likely wouldn't care about something that's impure in the eyes of the Erd Tree. But that's just speculation. No, not all perfumers who left the order chose to become depraved or run off and go crazy and massacre villages. No, some in fact really wanted to fulfill their original purpose of being healers. The ones that left the capital did so for a number of reasons. One such perfumer cast aside his badge and adornments, which was considered a big deal to these perfumers, who were treated as nobility and with the highest respects by all the people. And he left the order, likely seeing that they'd lost their way during the shattering. This lone traveling perfumer still wanted to do some good, perhaps to make up for the actions he committed during the shattering and its subsequent wars. He was last seen heading east to Caelid in search of new aromatics and flower gardens in hopes of treating the misbegotten Omen and all those seen as impure. A truly noble goal. Such idealistic flights of fancy like that don't often end well in these games, and sadly this is no exception. So in summary, the perfumers started out as healers and doctors, but when war came around, they were given leadership roles instead of healing roles. As the war went on, were given access to increasingly prohibited and sacred items and elements to use, which would eventually lead to a schism in their ranks, leading to the formation of the Depraved Perfumers, who would go on to commit many atrocities in the name of no one but themselves. Wearing aprons that openly cursed the Erd Tree, these perfumers were in stark opposition to their brethren at the capital, whose order was originally founded to help the people. And the Omenkillers were a particularly nasty group of perfumers who took a physic that left them devoid of emotion, so they could kill cursed babies and make weapons out of them with which to then hunt big demons with. One thing all three of these subgroups have in common is their shared reverence for the Miranda flowers. The perfumers in general appear to have a somewhat symbiotic relationship with the plants, of which there's too many subvariants to count, but there are a lot of them, and the special ones found at the Perfumers' Grotto are very interesting as they're multicolored, and one of them has a name, Miranda the Blighted Bloom. Not sure, what relevance that has, or if it's just a particularly revered flower. All of that is just kind of theory and speculation. Or these perfumers could have no reverence for them at all and just kind of see them as tools and a means to an end, like they're just cultivating these living flowers that are also acting as guards in some of these ruins to use them for their Miranda powder to make many poisons and many perfumes, because most perfumes require Miranda powder as an ingredient. But all that is kind of just rambly speculation, and I guess since I'm on the subject of speculation, I could talk about the fact that the two Omenkillers found at Volcano Manor could also have been sent by Gideon or an agent of Gideon's, but that's really only supported by the fact you find that surcoat in Rickard's arena, and that the Omenkillers are almost entirely out of place there. They could very well be serving as mercenary guards for the place. I mean, Tanith doesn't seem like she'd really care about the type of people she hires. I mean, the place is mainly armed by snake men, but honestly, like I said, it's all speculation at this point. I just wanted to cover the perfumers, and for the most part, I think that's pretty much covered. Let me know if I missed anything or if I misinterpreted anything. If you like the video, like and subscribe. If there's anything I can do better, any kind of criticism, I don't care, send it my way. I'm actually enjoying making these. Have a good one. See you guys.